So on Sunday it's the Manchester derby. The biggest game in English football right now is Pep Guardiola and Jose Mourinho renew an old rivalry, with league leaders and noisy neighbours Manchester City heading to Old Trafford for what will be the toughest game of their season so far. It should be an incredible game, as long as Jose Mourinho doesn't bring his big old bus back, but let's go back to 2011 and look at one of the most famous Manchester derbies in recent years, where City beat United 6-1 away from home. Let's take a look at who started for both sides and where they are now. We'll start with the home team, and in goal was David De Gea. He might be the best goalkeeper in the Premier League nowadays, but in 2011 he was a fresh face at Old Trafford and was massively under the cosh due to the physicality of the Premier League, made worse by the fact he had to pick the ball out of his net 6 times against Man City. In 2017 though, the only problem De Gea has is that ridiculous top knot. Come on Dave, sort it out. At right back was Chris Smalling. Another player who is still at Old Trafford, but Smalling isn't at the level De Gea is, with the English defender no longer a regular at Manchester United and the poor bloke can't even get in the England team. Incredibly, this is Smalling's 8th season at Old Trafford. Centre back was Jonny Evans. The man who was slightly to blame for Man United getting a battering off their rivals, Evans was sent off just 2 minutes into the second half. A very talented defender, Evans was probably wrongly let go by United, joining West Brom in 2015, with his performances for the Baggies almost getting a move back to Manchester, with Pep Guardiola having been keen to bring Evans to the Etihad. He was alongside Rio Ferdinand. A Manchester United legend, Rio Ferdinand will just wish he'd retired in 2014 rather than joining QPR. That's how bad he was at Loftus Road, with the R's doing their best to protect Ferdinand's shot-to-bit legs as they suffered relegation to the Championship. Now aged 39, Ferdinand is working as a pundit and looking to launch a career as a professional boxer. Expect to see the big box office fight between Ferdinand and Flintoff sometime next year. Left back was Patrice Evra. Poor Patrice Evra, it's all gone Pete Tong in the past few months. He's one of the best left backs in the world at Man United and then continued to perform well at Juventus. Nowadays though, Evra is banned from football until June 2018 after kicking a fan before a Europa League game in November. Oh well, at least his Instagram page is still a place of joy and happiness. On the right wing was Nani. The smart price version of Ronaldo, Nani had some moments of brilliance in red, but it was the beginning of the end for the Portuguese midfielder once Sir Alex Ferguson left. Nani left Old Trafford in 2014 initially on loan and has played for Sporting, Fenerbahce, Valencia and now Valencia at the age of 31. In the middle was Anderson. Another Man United player whose career was on borrowed time once Fergie left. It shows just how much Sir Alex Ferguson was getting out of average players. Once tipped as a future world great, Anderson is now back in Brazil at the age of 29, where he's been since 2015, signing for Internacional. He's now on loan at Curitiba and won't be going to the World Cup next summer. Not that you didn't already know that. He was alongside Darren Fletcher. The scorer of Man United's only goal that day against City, and what a goal it was. Fletcher suffered from ulcerative colitis during his final few years at Old Trafford, but the Scot is now back playing regular Premier League football, first with West Brom and now with Stoke City, under former Manchester United player and Man City manager Mark Hughes. On the left wing was Ashley Young. Who'd have thought Ashley Young would still be a Manchester United player in 2017, let alone an important part of Jose Mourinho's side? Young has converted into a left back and has done well for United, forcing his way back into the England team somehow, as well as putting Dele Alli in his place. The lad has come so far since getting bird in his mouth. What a story. Up front was Danny Welbeck. A local lad appearing in the Manchester derby, Danny Welbeck is a mixed bag of a player. You never know what you're going to get, like a wise Forrest Gump once said. In 2014 he was sold by Louis van Gaal to Arsenal, where he spent most of his time either injured, scoring goals or infuriating fans. That guy Welbs. And finally we've got Wayne Rooney. Manchester United's all-time leading goal scorer and eventual captain, Rooney holds the record for the most goals scored in the Manchester derby, finding the net 11 times against Manchester City. He won't be adding to that tally though, returning to Everton over the summer where he has really found the scoring touch, embarrassing Joe Hart from the halfway line the other week. So that was the Manchester United team that was hammered. Let's take a look at the Man City team that hammered them. In goal was Joe Hart. I bet Joe Hart wishes it was still 2011 because things are miserable for him in 2017 despite still being a Manchester City player. Since Pep Guardiola arrived, Hart has been broken, slammed for his inability to use his feet, then loaned to Torino where he spent a disappointing season out of the spotlight, and now he's at West Ham on loan, where things are absolutely desperate. Oh well, at least he's still got a trip to Russia to look forward to. At right back was MICAH Richards. It could be worse for Joe Hart, he could be MICAH Richards, now there's a man who fell from grace. He was England's best right back at one point, but nowadays he's in the Championship with Aston Villa after suffering relegation a couple of seasons ago. Is Richards doing his bit to get Villa promoted? Nah, and if you bang his name into Twitter, you'll find a range of people questioning whether he even exists anymore. Centre back was VINCENT KOMPANY. These were the glory days for Big Vinny, back when his body wouldn't give up on him at the thought of having to play consecutive Premier League games. Over the past few years, KOMPANY has suffered with various muscle problems, but is still an absolute beast at the back when fit, as well as being a leader, something that has been missing at the Etihad in years gone by while he was absent. He was alongside JOLEON LESCOTT, a man with 2 Premier League winners' medals, that's 2 more than Steven Gerrard's got. LESCOTT had a solid-ish partnership with KOMPANY, but joined West Brom in 2014, then stayed in the Midlands to sign for Aston Villa, where an embarrassing season saw them relegated to the Championship. LESCOTT then went on holiday to Greece to play a few games for AEK Athens, before being reunited with David Moyes at Sunderland, where again he suffered relegation. LESCOTT will have his phone on standby with Moyes back in football with West Ham, but he was also recently linked with a move to non-league Telford. At left back was GAEL CLICHY. He may have a woman's name, but GAEL CLICHY was a fine fullback on his day. The Frenchman was part of a fullback exodus at the Etihad this summer, leaving the club alongside Alex Kolarov, Bakary Sagna and Pablo Zabaleta, with CLICHY heading to Turkey to play for Istanbul Başakşehir alongside Manuel Adebayor. In midfield was James Milner. Banter clause himself, apparently James Milner is really boring, which doesn't really matter because he's a footballer, not an entertainer. He joined Liverpool in 2015 on a free transfer and now just plays wherever Jurgen Klopp tells him to, having spent most of last season at left back. Next up was YAYA TOURE. The Big Ivorian is still with Manchester City against the odds, despite sulks regarding birthday cakes and spats between his agent and Pep Guardiola. It came as a surprise when he extended his contract and will remain with the club until the end of the season despite interest from elsewhere, according to his agent on Twitter. Also in midfield was Gareth Barry. No one has played more Premier League games than Gareth Barry, breaking Ryan Giggs' record of 632 games earlier in the season. Barry remained with Man City until September 2013 when he joined Everton, and this summer he signed for West Brom, as Tony Pulis looked to make his West Brom side even more defensive than humanly possible. Next up was David Silva. The scorer of Manchester City's 5th goal, David Silva is of course still a City player and probably a club legend now after his years of service for the club, as they've gone from mid-table strugglers to the Premier League's elite. Silva has also undergone transformations, with his luscious locks being shaved off over the summer, as the Spaniard now dons a very bald head which will not serve him well over the winter months. Oh, and he's just signed a new 1-year deal at the club. Up front was Sergio Aguero. Another man who got on the score sheet against Manchester United. It was just one of many Man City goals for Aguero, who is now the club's all-time leading goal scorer, breaking Eric Brook's record with his 178th City goal against Napoli in the Champions League. Aguero has 8 goals in the Manchester derby, so could break Wayne Rooney's record of 11 goals at some point in the very near future. And finally we've got Mario Balotelli. Why always him? The day of one of the Premier League's most famous celebrations, Balotelli had one of his best days in a City shirt at Old Trafford, scoring twice in the 6-1 thrashing. The Italian left in 2013 to sign for AC Milan, then had a shock Premier League return with Liverpool, which didn't go well. After a return to AC Milan on loan, Balotelli is now in France with Nice, having re-found the scoring touch. So those are the teams from the Manchester derby that saw Man City win 6-1 in 2011 and where they are now. Let us know your predictions for the game in the comments below. Thanks for watching and don't forget to like, share and subscribe.